I know this is like a cheesy poster thing to say, but love is like the most important ingredient. My name is Mila. I'm a casting director and stylist and a chef or a cook. The first salad I'm gonna make is a confetti salad with the base of kale. The point of this is to use everything that's in season right now in kind of like the end of the summer in the garden. So we have some Locarno kale, I think I'm pronouncing it right, and just some curly kale. So the first step is you just kind of want to run the knife along the stem of the leaf. And don't ever throw the stems away because you can put them in smoothies and stuff if you just chuck them in your freezer. Like a really big thing for me is using as much of the food or vegetable or fruit or whatever or the animal as possible. You kind of want to mound it and kind of like tighten it. And then you cut it really small. I love to cook. I love to host dinner parties. I love cooking outside. I love cooking on the fire. I don't know if I necessarily even like do it for the food. I feel like I do it for the people, to be honest. For like family and your chosen family and your friends and your community. I think food really brings people together. I'm gonna oil it. You massage the kale to get it a little bit more tender so it's easier to eat. I'm just gonna take this like really pretty shiso from the garden. It's so pretty and it's like purple on one side and then like green on the other, so when it's in the salad it looks really good. The shiso flavor profile is like pretty floral, a little bit numbing, and I did the same. I rolled it up and now I'm cutting it super fine. And then I have this like wasabi arugula, which is super freaking spicy, and we're cutting it fine because you don't want like a big bite of it, you just want like a taste of it. It's such a fun thing to put on a table when you're hosting, like a big colorful salad. Okay, and then next step, you just cut a lemon in half and then stick a fork in it and kind of just drizzle it on top. My cooking style is more of a freestyle moment. I love baking and I wish I was good at making bread and stuff, but it's just not for me. Like it's too chemistry for me. I've definitely tried. I was like trying to make sourdough on top of a campfire while I was camping and stuff, and it was a joke. People still ate it with like half-hearted smiles on. And then just like a pinch of pepper. And then I really like this like super flaky sea salt, like a Malden salt. Honestly, if I was like chilling at home alone, I would probably eat this whole bowl. But for a dinner party, like if there's like 3 other dishes, this is good for like 6 people, these 2 probably. This is a microplane. It will turn these almonds into such a beautiful flake. It's so awesome. I think it just looks so pretty too. I'm passionate about not wasting food because I think that we've been raised and conditioned to think that only pretty food has to be eaten. So like no bruised apples, no bruised peaches. Like if you think about it, every part of a vegetable can and should be used. Like I think if you just take a minute and think about what you have in front of you and how you can use it tomorrow, and I think everybody could have a few less trips to the supermarket. I'm gonna take some of this like really beautiful beet that we grew at our garden down the street. Another thing I have here is nasturtium leaves. Just take anything that you know is edible in the garden and just put it on the salad because it's so beautiful just to celebrate like the bounty of what you have in your backyard or what there is at the farmers markets, honestly. And if you get to know these like edible plants, you start to notice them in your neighborhood, and then you could, with the permission of your neighbors, sneakily take a few things every now and then. I was walking down the street and getting a coffee and I saw there was garlic scapes in an alley by my coffee shop, and that's pretty hilarious. These are marigolds. They just look so pretty, so I just do a little bit on top. I learned how to cook just by sitting on the counter while my mom or my grandma cooked and hanging out with like my dad and my uncle, like right after they caught fish, they would gut it right there in the backyard and throw it straight on the barbecue. These are little edible flowers called bachelor buttons. The last thing is these little cute beets I'm gonna put on. I love working with ingredients that are in our backyards and using things that are readily available to you and maybe in your neighborhood, maybe in your zone, like down the street at the market. I think it's done. It's kind of like a painting, like you never want to stop. To eat this for dinner is like such a good way to end your day. Like such a gift. Now I'm gonna make the tomato salad. Some of these tomatoes came from, like this really big one, came from my friend Louise. It's important to mention that up until maybe now, you wouldn't find a tomato like this at the store. I think that people shy away from vegetables that look imperfect, which I think is also a huge waste. So don't be afraid to eat a tomato that has cracks or, you know, a tomato that's split. This one came from our garden at Ariana and Alex's, and I think it's so cute. It's called a tumbler tomato. We started this plant from seed. So it was like one tiny seed and I grew it here in my solarium. And then as soon as it was big enough to plant, then we put it in a pot and it just grew and we made the pot bigger and bigger. And now this plant is like, from the ground up, it's like this tall. These tomatoes came from Valley Buds. We picked them yesterday. The flavor profile is, and I'm not like a tomato sommelier or anything, but it's like candy, honeysuckle, melon. They're kind of sometimes taste like strawberries, and in the salad I think they're gonna look so beautiful as little circles. Because of the hot weather and the on and off and the dry, a lot of these tumbler tomatoes got really cool patterns on them, and a lot of them are like cool spirals, and spirals are so trendy right now. And like, I don't even care that happened, like just let the vegetable like do its thing. One thing I'm really specific about when I'm making tomato salad is to not let any of the juices leave. Me and my family joke that the only reason why we eat tomato salad is because of the juice and using the bread to like sop up the juice and stuff. The production from one seed, if you have the patience to like water them every day, is so inspiring, and growing food on your own is super fulfilling. If you can do it, I suggest everybody does it. When I'm hosting and I invite people over to my house saying that I'm gonna cook for them, well, I just started this recently, but I like to send out a little text message in the group chat that basically says, I'm cooking for you. If I need help, I'll let you know, but please don't ask. Wear your shoes inside and do the dishes. Presentation is really important, of course, and the ingredients are super important, of course. But I think if you're cooking everything with like the intention of bringing people together, and like, I know this is like a cheesy poster thing to say, but love is like the most important ingredient. And if you don't feel like cooking, like, I feel like people can just tell. I'm gonna start plating the tomatoes on this beautiful plate. I was thinking of doing like a gradient, but I think I'll do more of like a shapes and fun kind of play. And there's no like rhyme or reason for arranging, but I went to Emily Carr, so hopefully I do it right. Yes, a little bit of a layer technique. It's so beautiful already. We're just gonna add the olive oil. Honestly, you can't do too much because God forbid you'd have to use more bread to sop that up. And this is just balsamic. Usually when I go shopping for condiments, just to be like more price aware, I don't buy the most expensive one. And for quality awareness, I don't buy the cheapest one. I buy right in the middle. I think like a finishing salt like this Malden salt is my best ingredient in my kitchen. And just a little bit of pepper. And then this is the purslane. Purslane is not that easy to find at the store, but it's really easy to grow. If you want to be a sneaky, you can just put some seeds somewhere like in your neighbor's garden or something funny and scary and sexy like that, and then check on it later. I could go on forever just decorating. And then for the last little bit, when our arugula went to seed, there were so many flowers, and so we saved them all and dried them all. I just like make it rain. Like not too much, not too little, just like a good composition. And that's the heirloom tomato family salad. I love making salads like this because they're super simple, and with the right ingredients and in the right composition and the right plate, you got great dish.